All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are looking at something absolutely legendary, the concept of Brazilian football's beautiful game, or Joga Bonito. Now, for decades, the entire world has been completely mesmerized by this rhythmic, almost dance-like style of Brazilian soccer. But what if I told you that this globally adored style is actually deeply misunderstood, incredibly complex historically, and, according to a lot of modern analysts, effectively dead? So we're going to trace the dramatic journey of Brazilian football, from its defiant rhythmic roots all the way to its modern demise on the global stage. Let's get started. I want you to listen to this staggering quote from Carlos Alberto Pereira. He's the manager who led Brazil to win the 1994 World Cup. He famously said, "Magic and dreams are finished in football." Wow. It's an incredibly dramatic hook, right? So how exactly did the poetic dance of Brazilian football, literally the very thing that made the world fall in love with the sport, become this unacceptable tactical risk? Well, to understand how the magic ended, we first need to look at exactly how it began. And that brings us right to the core of the Brazilian style, which is a concept called Ginga. Now, Ginga is not just some sports technique. It actually originated as a fundamental movement in capoeira. That's the defensive martial art developed by African slaves in Brazil. In capoeira, to gingar literally means to rhythmically sway your body from side to side. And on the football pitch, well, this evolved into an incredibly effective tool. By staying in constant, rhythmic motion, players could avoid defensive pressure, completely confuse their opponents, and mask their true intentions. It wasn't just a party trick, it was a pure mechanism for survival and escape.
Okay, moving on to Section 1, the roots of Ginga.
So, following the abolition of slavery in 1888, the early 20th century saw these massive social shifts across Brazil. Football was actually introduced by the British around this time, but simultaneously, Afro-Brazilian culture was really starting to find its voice. In 1928, the first formal samba school was created in the poorer neighborhoods of Rio. And by 1938, as we'll talk about in just a second, sociologists were already connecting these cultural dots. Basically, the forces of freedom, music, and this brand new sport all collided to forge a completely unique national identity. A really crucial point here is that you literally cannot separate the football from the music. Think about the layered instruments of samba music, and then think about the coordination required out on the football pitch. It's like a giant puzzle. The heavy surdo bass drum acts as the foundation, much like the structural rhythm of a team. The caixa snare, well, that drives the pace and the urgency of an attack. But the real magic? That happens with the tambourine. It adds this high-pitched, totally unexpected syncopation. In football terms, that's your sudden change of direction. It's the unexpected elastico dribble, or that crazy feint that just leaves a defender frozen in place.
Now, tied directly to this rhythm is the concept of malandragem. It's essentially this cunning, street intelligence, the highly flexible ability to just find creative solutions when you're under intense pressure. The malandro was a popular cultural figure. Picture a slick, urban hustler surviving purely by his wits. Out on the pitch, this sociocultural trait translated directly into players surprising their opponents with unexpected, rule-bending movements. Really, it's the art of deceiving your opponent with a smile.
Which brings us to Section 2, Freire's myth of football arte. Back in 1938, a sociologist named Gilberto Freire wrote a very famous article where he deliberately juxtaposed two vastly different styles of global football. He argued that the Brazilian style, which he called futebol mulatto, was dance-like, poetic, and entirely driven by individual spontaneity. He then directly contrasted this with European football. He categorized the European game as Apollonian, rigid, and driven by mechanical calculation and systems. So, according to Freire, the Brazilian game was pure poetry, while the European game was just prose. And he used this exact idea to foster a massive sense of national pride. Freire actually took this even further with a pretty controversial assertion. He stated, psychologically, being a Brazilian is being a mulatto. So what was he doing here? Well, he was using football to push a narrative of racial democracy. Freire wanted to project the idea that Brazil's multiracial nation could shine together in perfect harmony out on the football pitch. It was this incredibly beautiful, powerful story designed to unite what was actually a very massive and divided country. Right. Section 3, the reality of racism. To understand the reality behind that myth, take the shocking story of Arthur Friedenreich. He was one of Brazil's earliest superstars, a genuinely brilliant player with an Afro-Brazilian background. Yet to survive in the highly prejudiced early days of the sport, when elite clubs often outright banned black players, Friedenreich was forced to apply rice powder to his face and straighten his hair just to appear white and gain acceptance. Players of color were literally masking their identities just to play the game they were actively revolutionizing.
So, as you can see, the historical reality was actually far darker than Freyr's unifying myth. Football began as a highly exclusive sport for white elites. Early black players faced systematic segregation and real violence. Academics often point out that the political elite essentially used the success of black and mixed-race players as a sort of Trojan horse. They projected this glorious message of international harmony to the rest of the world while simultaneously ignoring severe domestic inequalities, which left Afro-Brazilians at the very bottom of the socioeconomic pyramid. And whenever the national team lost a World Cup, the media frequently reverted to using awful racist tropes to blame those very same players.
Let's pivot a bit. Section 4. The Golden Eras.
Despite those immense societal pressures, individual brilliance still forced the world to fall in love with Joga Bonito. You can really see how Ginga evolved across the generations. Just think about Pele from the 1950s through the 70s. His Ginga was deeply functional. It was all about seamless fluidity, flawless body balance, and a completely spontaneous rhythm that dictated the natural pace of the entire game. Fast forward to the 2000s with Ronaldinho, and Ginga had evolved into this deeply aesthetic, performative street art brought right to the professional stage. His elastico tricks and his joyful defiance showed everyone that you didn't just have to beat an opponent. You could actually play with the game itself.
And now, Section 5, the death of Joga Bonito. So what happened? Well, modern football fundamentally shifted. Elite matches today are strictly defined by highly coordinated pressing systems. Defenses rely on compact, heavily drilled blocks. Academies now teach automatisms, which are basically pre-rehearsed passing patterns, rather than focusing on individual creativity. Furthermore, football clubs today are massive asset structures actively seeking to reduce variance and financial risk. In the past, Joga Bonito lived in these local spaces where a mistake was quickly forgotten. Today, every single failed trick is instantly clipped, scrutinized on social media, and punished globally. Individual flair has literally become a tactical liability. To see just how drastic this shift really is, to put it into perspective, just think about this number: 5,943. That is the total number of completed dribbles in the Premier League during the 2024 to 2025 season. That actually fell below 6,000 for the first time in over a decade. It's empirical proof that the game's center of gravity has totally shifted away from individual expression and heavily toward quick release, safety, and possession retention. Which brings us directly to Neymar. He's widely considered the last true standard-bearer of Joga Bonito. He essentially bridges two distinct eras. He still carries those defiant, mischievous gestures of street football, the step-overs, the rainbow flicks that almost invite physical contact. But he is doing it while trapped inside a modern game governed strictly by metrics, compliance, and global capital. He is living the intense contradiction of being a creative artist who's simultaneously treated as a multi-million-dollar financial asset. Which leaves us with this final, powerful question to think about. Is the death of Joga Bonito the actual disappearance of beauty, or has the modern pursuit of perfection simply reclassified that beauty as an unacceptable risk? Has the relentless pursuit of efficiency finally priced out the joy? It's a truly fascinating look at how culture, history, and capital all collide right on the pitch. Keep that in mind the next time you sit down to watch a match. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your curiosity alive.